Imagine, one day you look in the mirror, but your reflection answers you too late. Then, without taking your eyes off of you, it says quietly, "You've been keeping me here for so long." This is neither a movie episode nor a stage role. One night, Johnny Depp comes home and hears his own voice on his phone. Suddenly, a question arises in his mind. What if everyone knows you, but you're no longer you? The scary thing in this story is not the shadows. The real fear is, what would you do if someone else lived in your place? Continue watching the video carefully, because in this story, the first one to come out of the mirror does not lose. Hollywood nights were usually noisy and exciting, but that evening there was an unusual calm. Johnny Depp walked slowly along the long, narrow corridor of his mansion alone. The old paintings hanging on the walls seemed to have acquired a strange vitality in the candlelight. With each step, the subtle creaking sounds of the wooden floor echoed in his ears. This house had been a safe haven for him for many years, but in recent months, something had changed. Either the house itself was changing, or it was Johnny who was changing. It all started with a mirror. In a corner of the dressing room, there was an old mirror that had not been used for a long time. Its frame was ancient and strange symbols were carved on it, the meaning of which he did not understand. Johnny could not remember where or when he had bought this mirror, but he knew that when he looked at this mirror, time seemed to slow down. That same night, he experienced the same feeling. He glanced at the mirror, but his reflection did not appear immediately. A second, 2 seconds. Then the reflection nodded. Johnny immediately pulled back, his heart pounding in his chest. The mirror reflected back at him, but those eyes were completely different, darker, more penetrating, and more passionate. "You finally dared to look," he heard a voice say. But the voice was not coming from the mirror, but from inside his head. Johnny took a deep breath and repeated in a panic, "Who are you?" The figure in the mirror smiled slowly, but this smile was neither characteristic of his beloved Jack Sparrow character, nor did it resemble the classic charm that captivates on the stage. There was pessimism in this smile, a long hidden grudge. "I am the side you are trying to hide, Masom," the voice said quietly. After that night, nightmares became his inseparable confidant. Every night, Johnny would be plunged into the same recurring nightmare, an empty movie theater and a single chair in the middle of the stage. And the one sitting in the chair was himself. The only difference was that Johnny in the chair never raised his head to look at him. Every time Johnny dared to approach the same chair, but the figure slowly turned around, showing its face and opening its mouth. And from it flowed not words, but endless darkness. In the mornings, new traces appeared in the mirror. The shadows under his eyes deepened. Pale lines appeared on his face that did not belong to him. Even on days when he did not leave the house, mud stains could be seen on his shoes. One night, Johnny heard strange sounds. The sound of footsteps. Although the house was empty, the doors were firmly closed, but those footsteps were clearly coming down the stairs. Johnny advanced in the direction of the sounds, knife in hand. A mirror stood unexpectedly in the middle of the hall, in a place where it wasn't always there. The mirror moved. He could see clearly. A hand was emerging from it, then a shoulder, and finally a face. He recognized the face immediately. It was the same person, but paler, thinner. His eyes were like dark voids. "You chose fame, and I paid the price," the being said. Johnny wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The being that emerged from the mirror continued to approach him. With each step it took, the lights in the house went out one by one. "You got the roles, and I carried the sins." The being touched Johnny's chest with a finger. The finger was ice cold. At that moment, Johnny understood everything. What he saw in front of him was not just a hallucination. This was the embodied form of the fears, regrets, and dark choices he had buried inside him for years. The mirror shattered behind him, and Johnny found himself alone in the middle of the living room. But this solitude did not last long. The mirror was gone, but in every window of the house, other versions of him were visible. They all said the same thing, voices rising in whispers. "You let me go, and now I'm here." With those words, the doors suddenly locked. The darkness of the night had just begun. Johnny Depp thought he had woken up in the morning, but there was no morning light. When he opened his eyes, instead of a ceiling, An endless black sky was staring at him. He wanted to get up, but his body did not move. His hands and arms were pressed against the wooden seat. It was a scene. Hundreds of empty chairs stretched around him. Thousands. All of them were shrouded in deep darkness. But the feeling that he was being watched was growing rapidly. Suddenly, a projector was turned on. A bright light revealed a screen, and Johnny's life began to be shown on the screen. But an unfamiliar life. These were memories he had not experienced. Closed rooms, fiery glances, noisy screams, faces flickering in blood-covered mirrors. Suddenly, a strange voice came from behind. "You've always hidden behind roles, and now the role is leaving you." Johnny turned his head and saw a version of himself looking at him in the mirror. This time, it was perfect, alive and real. "This is not real," Johnny whispered, but his smile from the mirror made the darkness colder. The most terrible things are never real. The projector had changed. Now a new movie poster was shown on the stage. Johnny Depp, the last role. Applause rose from the auditorium, but no hands were visible. It was as if thousands of spectators mixed with air were breathing. Mirror Johnny came on stage and whispered, "I want to be free, and you need to rest." The chains came off. Johnny tried to get up, but his legs were not his own. His fingers felt like strangers. Mirror Johnny stepped forward with a faint smile. "The body was yours before, and now it's mine." In an instant, the scene changed. Johnny was back in his own house, but now he was just a spectator. When he looked in the mirror, he saw another face, one younger, more energetic, and more Johnny. He was smiling, giving interviews, and waving to his fans. No one could tell the difference. Johnny screamed desperately, but his voice was inaudible. In panic, he hit the mirror. The glass shook, but it never broke. A deep voice echoed in front of him. "The mask always works. People love the charm of the role, not the truth." Over time, Johnny became trapped inside the mirror. There, time was static and limitless. He just watched. New films, new interviews, new applause. One night, the new Johnny came to the mirror and whispered quietly, "Don't worry, they won't forget you." The mirror held a secret. The next day, the news spread very quickly. Johnny Depp had amazed the audience with an indescribably realistic performance in his new film. But one detail escaped the eyes. In one scene, for a moment, the mirror appeared on the screen. Inside the mirror was a strange man. He was punching the wall, screaming, moving. But he was still there, silent but with a familiar panic. It was the first night of the premiere. The red carpet was awash with attention. The cameras were flashing nonstop. The audience was watching the film, applauding, and the journalists were all asking the same question. "How did you manage to portray such real fear on screen?" Johnny smiled softly. "I would call it acting," he replied in a whisper. "I just remembered the facts." That night he returned home alone. A deep silence fell all around. The familiar mirror, standing tall at the end of the hallway, stood guard. Johnny walked toward it. This time he saw his reflection right in front of him. But the face in the mirror was expressed with deep fear. Hands were tremblingly touching the glass, and lips were moving. "Please, let me out of here." Johnny tilted his head slightly to the side, as if looking at someone he had known for a long time. "I once begged like that." He turned off the light. The next morning, the maid found the mirror in the wardrobe. A crack had formed in the mirror, and a pale shadow was moving behind the crack. But it was too late, because the real Johnny Depp had long since finished his last role, and the audience was still applauding.